Hello, I'm Doug, and welcome to the Krewe of Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture.
This time on Krewe of Japan podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are lacing up our cleats for part 2 of our Japanese soccer deep dive. Last time we stayed local, breaking down the J.League, top teams, and star players just tearing it up on their home turf. But we also touched a little bit on how players like Zuko changed the trajectory of their respective Japanese clubs. Well, this week we're going to keep that vibe, and then some, because we're going global, y'all. In recent decades, Japan has firmly interwoven itself into the sport around the world. And joining us once again to break this phenomenon down is the one and only Dan Orlowitz, Japan-based journalist, soccer guru, and walking encyclopedia of all things footy. This time, we'll explore the samurai blue and Japan competing on the world stage.
You look at who Japan should have access to in 2026, no team in the world wants to be in the group with Japan. You look at 2022, you look at the results in friendlies, you look at how easily they've gone through qualifying. When Japan believes in itself, it can beat anyone.
Japanese talent that has left Japan to pursue greatness around the world.
The command post. The guy who's at the center of things, directing everyone and moving all the pieces around. He is the latest in just a proud tradition of players like Shunsuke Nakamura, like Yasuhito Endo, like Makoto Hasebe. Like, Japan excels at producing that sort of player, and that's where Kubo is fitting in.
The outside influences that have had substantial impacts on Japanese soccer.
Germany actually sent a coach called Detmar Kramer to Japan to be sort of a technical advisor / coach to the JFA, and he helped get the team ready. And the groundwork that he laid out, including telling Japan to establish a national league, which became the Japan Soccer League, which those teams joined the J.League, and you know, it all started there. And his work, a lot of what he started, led to Japan's bronze medal at the '68 Olympics in Mexico City.
And so much more. This deep dive will really dig into Japan's global soccer footprint and help you truly appreciate the worldwide growth and influence. Some seeds sown over 100 years ago, whereas others are much more recent. And if you've ever wondered how to catch a J.League match without booking a flight to Japan, yep, we got you covered there too. So grab your favorite kit and settle in, because the second half of this soccer series is ready to kick off. Let's go. Thinking about finally learning Japanese, but worried you'll end up just mumbling arigato or konnichiwa forever? Don't worry, NewOrleansJapaneseLessons.com has you covered. Classes are led by Romy Sensei, a native Japanese speaker with over 20 years of teaching experience. She's been teaching online since before it was trendy. 2014, baby! Plus, her classes are super small, 6 people max, so you'll actually get to speak and get real feedback, not just sit there quietly wondering if you're butchering the word ramen. Romy Sensei's lived in New Orleans for over 15 years, and personal friends of mine have taken her classes. They seriously rave about how fun, clear, and downright awesome she is. Why keep telling yourself, I'll start learning next week in English, when you could just say it in Japanese and actually follow through with it at the same time? Check out NewOrleansJapaneseLessons.com, that's lessons with an S, and get started today. Are you new to the Krewe? Yokoso! We hope you enjoy this episode. If you like what you hear today, then you'll really love our back catalog of episodes from earlier this season and previous seasons. We've had some incredible guests, like Gato Moves Baliana Ki grappling with Japanese pro wrestling, world champion taiko drummer Takumi Kato sharing the thunderous sounds of taiko, Godzilla guru Dr. William Tsutsui breaking down the evolution of Godzilla, and so much more. After you finish up this episode, hit that subscribe button or follow or whatever it is, and get notified when new episodes come out. Then while you wait for the new episode to drop, play catch up with the Krewe. But before you do any of that, let's dive into today's episode.
Another thing you mentioned is the national team, the Samurai Blue, right? And over the past few years has really become, you know, if you look at these past few World Cups, have really become kind of a team that people love to root for, whether it's because some of the things you mentioned, you know, the cleaning up locker rooms that went viral, you know, after the game, whether it's the way that they play, the incredible comebacks, knocking out giants. Which one was it? Maybe 2022, they got to the round of 16.
Yeah.
End up, falling to Croatia, which
They
Croatia
had,
would
I
go
think
pretty
they had
far.
like
So
Germany and Spain in
yeah, I
their
think
The
in
knock
their
group
out
of death.
Spain,
yeah, the
and the
group of
group of
death.
death, and I think of the World Cup before that. Actually, my grandfather, who does not watch soccer at all, tunes in and he's seeing it was the World Cup where Japan was playing Belgium.
Yep.
He tunes in and he's like, I'm rooting for Japan. And I'm like, what? And this guy is let me tell you, a huge beer drinker. And so for him, who Belgium is like his top country in the world that he, wants to visit, for him to be like, I'm not rooting for Belgium, I'm rooting for Japan. Amazing, but I think that goes to the kind of this, I don't know if you'd call it a renaissance. I don't know if it's just a surge and, for the national team, but all of that to say, the national team has been doing phenomenal in the past few years. We have a World Cup that's coming up in 2026. What's your outlook on what we're looking at? What are their chances? And if you need to go back and unpack anything I said there,
I'm gonna have to unpack. I'm gonna unpack. I told you guys, you're signed up for like 45 minutes. You're getting this. Going to be a 2-hour episode when we're wrapped up. So the 2022 World Cup was insane, and that was beyond anyone's expectations. And what it did show, in a way, it blew us all away, but at the same time, it also proved what a lot of us have said about the national team for a while, is that the Samurai Blue succeed when the whole is worth more than the sum of its parts. And Japan has always done well internationally when you don't have a Messi or a Neymar or a Ronaldo. You have a squad that of 23 players, or 26, I guess it is now, that works well together. And when everyone links up and they can just tiki-taka their way around anyone, that's when the magic happens. And you do need players who are sort of above that level. And, we had Mitoma, we had Doan, we had Minamino in 2018 when they lost to Belgium, and wasn't that a heartbreaker? You had Honda, you had Kagawa, you had Okazaki, you had these genuine stars, but they all worked well as a unit. Now, Japan has qualified for every World Cup since 1998. So next year, 2026, should be number 8.
And let's just say, even nations like Italy and the United States can't even say that, which is incredible.
I think there's only 9 countries in the world who can say that.
Wow.
And Japan is one of them, and South Korea is one of them, which again shows the strength that's coming out of Asia as a whole. So you look at Japan and you can look at the national team through the lens of the World Cup. And I think it's important to see that in 1998, a squad of all J.League players. 2026 could be a squad of all Europe-based players, which I've been telling people for years. I think we're almost there, and you could get there. When you have 100 players in Europe to choose from, it's not that hard to do that. I mean, I think that even goalkeepers, you have Zion Suzuki at Parma, you have Leo Brian Kokobo I think he's at St. Troiden in Belgium these days. He was in Portimonense in Portugal for a while. The goalkeeper is always going to be a tough position, but aside from that, I mean, you can come up with an A, B, and C team in Europe. So things are looking great for the national team now. I think all they need is a win against Bahrain in about a month, and that will punch their ticket. It will be, in fact, the earliest that Japan have qualified for a World Cup since 2002, when they qualified by becoming co-hosts. So they'll have, 450 days to get ready. Like, it's insane how much time they'll have. Yeah, you'd like to think that it should be good, but then you look at this stupid 48-team format. The goal is to get to the quarterfinals. It's so easy to qualify that it almost sort of takes some prestige out of the qualifying process. But for Japan now, qualifying is just a road marker. Like, it's no big deal anymore. Now it's about getting through the round of 16. And for next year, that means not just getting through the group phase, but getting through the round of 32 and the round of 16. So you've got to win one more game than you would have before. And, you look at how Japan has crashed out of the round of 16 in previous years. Mm-hmm. Croatia, they were not ready for penalties. They did not have the leadership that they should have had because none of the players wanted to step up. And, Moriyasu sort of failed by not taking more responsibility as a coach and naming his squad. Like, in 2018, you're up against Belgium, and then just defensively everything collapsed at the last minute. The tank ran empty. 2010, they took Paraguay to penalties. 2002, they lost to, I believe it was Turkey in the round of 16, and Turkey went on to finish third, I think. So it's really just about figuring out what the missing piece is. Is it a killer striker? Is it a more cynical defending? Is it, a better goalkeeper? We finally have a new generation of goalkeepers who are looking, I'm really liking what Zion Suzuki is doing in Italy. And behind him, you have Kosei Tani at Machida, you have Keisuke Osako at Sanfrecce, you have Taishi Brandon Ozawa at FC Tokyo. Like, there's a really good new generation of goalkeepers coming in for the first time in 20 years. We had Eiji Kawashima as the starting goalkeeper for 3 straight World Cups, and then he was still in the squad at like 35 in Qatar. So you look at all of the players who get left off of the squad for qualifiers, and it's insane. And so you look at who Japan should have access to in 2026. No team in the world wants to be in the group with Japan. You look at 2022, you look at the results in friendlies, you look at how easily they've gone through qualifying. When Japan believes in itself, it can beat anyone.
You had mentioned earlier, with all the players in Europe right now, you could build A team, B team, C team, D team. Do you think a team of J.League All-Stars, can they take one of those Japan teams? Are there any stars that maybe are in the J.League that aren't in Europe yet that are being snubbed possibly from that team?
I do think that aside from goalkeeper, if you really want to argue about, Zion Suzuki versus Keisuke Osako, I really do think that all of Japan's best players are in Europe. Again, I mentioned Kota Takai earlier. You've got him as a defender who will make it to Europe one day. There were rumors about a winter move, probably this summer. And there's so much young talent there. You can look at any team's youth roster, look at who's doing stuff, and say that, I could see him in Europe. I could see him getting a shot, because it used to be that you needed a Bundesliga team to buy in and bring you over. You needed a top 5 team to really take you seriously. Now, so many other European clubs are seeing what Japanese players are doing, and I think they're convinced that not only can you sign bolted-on starter from day one players, but you can even sign Japanese players as a project and take that risk. And clubs weren't willing to take that risk on Japanese players 20 years ago. But they are now. You look at Yuito Suzuki going to Denmark, and he's done insane for Brøndby.
Even Kubo. I remember when Kubo came on the scene in Spain, everyone was talking, of course, the headlines go crazy. The next Messi, they're like the Japanese Messi, and he's a teenager. You're don't put that pressure on anyone. Why compare? But to your point, he was, I think, still a teenager when his name was coming on the headlines, and Barcelona and Real Madrid were fighting over.
Well, remember that he had moved to Spain to join Barcelona's youth academy, and was sent back to Japan after FIFA ruled that Barcelona were bringing over foreign kids that they should not have been bringing over. And he landed at FC Tokyo, and the deal was, everyone knew what the deal was, that at 18 he'd be gone. I covered his first J.League game.
No way.
It was for FC Tokyo's under-23 team, which was in the J3. And there had to be 50 or 60 members of the press there. I was on the pitch doing photography, and it was so crowded in that corner waiting for him to come on. And FC Tokyo did a phenomenal job of shielding him, protecting him, making sure he did speak to the media. They didn't just keep him wrapped in a bubble, but they did a good job of making sure that he was not getting too overwhelmed. And having heard him so many times in the mix zone and all that, one of the most mature players, he was an old soul, just the maturity that he would show in the mix zone at 16 and 17, just the way he spoke. I've been in so many mix zones. I've talked to so many athletes from so many different sports. When an athlete is locked in, you hear it. And I heard it from this kid. So it wasn't a surprise when he, signed with Real Madrid. And it's unfortunate that he didn't get through to the first team. But I think at Real Sociedad, he's found a good place, and he's 100%. Doing insanely well over there. And he's grown into the leader that Japan needs him to be and sort of expected him to be. Is he necessarily going to be putting up the best numbers on the team? No, but as what we call the command post, the guy who's at the center of things, directing everyone and moving all the pieces around. He is the latest in just a proud tradition of players like Shunsuke Nakamura, like Yasuhito Endo, like Makoto Hasebe. Like, Japan excels at producing that sort of player. And that's where Kubo was fitting in.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. Wow, Hasebe, I totally forgot. Like, wow, what a legend! Like these names, these players that you're mentioning and dropping, it just really just brings you back, and you start thinking about, man, gosh, there's been so many actually really great players that have broken through and gotten into Europe and have become legends. And it's incredible. But kind of in a reversed fashion. So we've been talking about players that have gotten into Europe, or players who are just outright in the J.League, just doing their thing, and are succeeding. One thing that we kind of hinted at earlier is foreign players coming to the J.League and having success. And if we're talking Zico, we didn't mention, but even Hulk, the great tradition of Brazilian players coming there, Leonardo, all sorts of players. And we mentioned kind of the whole Vissel Kobe, when Iniesta came, and then Fernando Torres went to like Sagan
Tosu, and that was a flop. But it's like, look, they're not all hits. I have a great Hulk story.
Oh, no way.
He had signed with, I think, Kawasaki Frontale, and he was loaned to Tokyo Verdy. And this was in 2008. Tokyo Verdy were back in the J1. And so it was the first Tokyo Derby of that season against FC Tokyo. And I was, of course, behind the goal with the FC Tokyo active support. And we were away. The two clubs share a stadium, but FC Tokyo were the quote-unquote away side. But they definitely outnumbered the Verdi supporters. And so it was just an insane atmosphere from the start. And who was taking on Hulk but a very young, fresh out of college, Yuto Nagatomo? And the play of the game came in like the 75th minute or so, when they were chasing a ball. Nagatomo just leaves Hulk flat on his ass in the corner, and Hulk's just looking like a baby, asking for, like calling for a foul, and he did not get it. And it's just, that's when Nagatomo became my favorite player.
Oh, wow.
Just made Hulk his bitch, and it was just phenomenal. And about 5 minutes later, Nagatomo sends the shot, and it goes off of a Verdi defender's leg and goes in, and that's the game winner, 2-1.
Wow.
Insane. And 2 years later, he's on a plane to Italy to go play for Cesena, and then joins Inter. And so he's a player who only spent 2.5 seasons in the J-League, but went on to have an insanely successful career in Europe with Inter, with Galatasaray, with Marseille. And then he comes back to FC Tokyo, his first club, and now he's here as a club legend, a veteran, and still a very good player. To get back to your point on foreign players, it is fascinating the influence that foreign players have had on and off the pitch, and how you look at the decisions that clubs make in terms of who they're signing, and how that reflects their style or goes on to define it. Especially a lot of clubs out west would sign players from Europe, especially Germany. Pierre Leparski came over at some point. Vissel had a number of German coaches, and I think a couple players along the way before they got into their whole Spanish thing in the last 10 years. One of the reasons that Germany and Japan have such a close soccer relationship, in the 60s, the JFA formed a relationship with the DFB, Germany's FA. Japan sent its national team to train in Duisburg. This was ahead of the Olympics in 64, which Tokyo were hosting. And a lot of the players on that team went on to become very important figures in Japanese soccer, and I'm talking at the institutional level. They are the ones who helped form the J-League. Saburo Kawabuchi became its first chairman, and he tells of looking at this amazing athletic park in Germany and the well-manicured pitches and everything. He's like, well, why can't we have that? Germany actually sent a coach called Detmar Krewe to Japan to be sort of a technical advisor / coach to the JFA, and he helped get the team ready. And the groundwork that he laid out, including telling Japan to establish a national league, which became the Japan Soccer League, which those teams joined the J-League, and it all started there. And his work, a lot of what he started, led to Japan's bronze medal at the 68 Olympics in Mexico City. But it goes back further, because you have a case of like Hiroshima, where soccer really took off among high school kids in the early 1900s. Japan and Germany were on opposite sides of World War I. There was actually a POW camp on like some tiny island off the coast of Hiroshima. and where they had a lot of German POWs who had been fighting in the East. The high school players would take boats to this little POW camp, and the German prisoners would teach them tactics. And some of those prisoners actually stayed on after the war, and were coaches. So,
Wow.
there's a lot of history of international change. And so when Japan beat Germany at the World Cup, that was in many ways the student has become the master, because that's a relationship that has spanned a century at this point, both formally and informally.
Wow.
And, that's one example. And there's, countless more that you can look at. And you look at all of the South Korean players who have come up through the J-League, and, Park Ji-sung, before he became a Man United legend, he was a Kyoto Sanga player.
Wow.
Think about Park and Hulk and Shinji Kagawa all getting their start and all having their breakout in the J2.
Yeah. And even on a managerial level, I think probably the biggest one and example, Arsene Wenger, Nagoya Grampus.
Right. He went and became the legend at Arsenal, and Postecoglou sort of followed in his footsteps away. He went from Yokohama F. Marinos to Celtic and now Tottenham. And yeah, you've had so many Brazilian coaches too. I mean, Nelsinho bounced around. You look at how many clubs he has in his resume, he's coaching 1 or 2 teams a year, but he stuck around at Kashiwa Racehall for a while, won a championship with them, won actually several cups with them. They won the 2011 J1 title, and then the Emperor's Cup the following year, and then the League Cup the year after that. I might have those last 2 switched around, but for better or for worse, Japan can no longer attract the top tier. Well, I say the top tier of foreign players are all going to Europe. The second tier these days are going to either China, where they have the money, or to Saudi Arabia and Qatar, where they really have the money. And the J-League, is getting maybe the third tier of Brazilians. But you can look at Leandro Damian and what he did at Kawasaki Frontale. I mean, he represented Brazil at the Olympics, and he did so much for that Frontale dynasty of the last 6 or 7 years. You have Marcos Jr. He won a championship with Marinos, and now he's at Sanfrecce Hiroshima doing amazing things there. You have even veteran players like Peter Utaka, who has a few caps for Nigeria. And he's stuck around the J-League for a decade at this point. It is so easy for foreign players to come here and they find a home. And in many ways, because yes, it's not as harsh a scene as it might be in other places. As long as you're
pressure's not on, right?
Right. There's not as much pressure.
Yeah.
Because the fans will back you. If you win over the fans, they will back you for life. And so when you see non-Japanese players who come here and they move their families here, and, Iniesta was the same way, sometimes a bit too much, he's missing a game because of an injury, but then you see he's taking his daughters to Disneyland or that sort of thing. But these players have become parts of the community. They're not just hired guns. Some of them are, but you see so many of them who will learn Japanese. Mitch Langerak at Nagoya Grampus, he did amazingly there for so many seasons, and he left a hero. I love going to games and you see when fans want to honor one of their foreign players, they'll distribute the flags. So for Langerak and for Josh Kennedy at Nagoya, also at Nagoya Grampus, you just see a sea of Australian flags behind this goal, and you love it. It's so cool, and it shows that I think that there tends to be this image of Japan being this sort of homogenous society that is closed off from the outside world. And in some ways that can be true, but in other ways, you look at some of the most well-traveled soccer fans I know in the world are in Japan. They will follow the national team wherever it goes. They will follow their club team to, ACL games in Thailand, in Korea, in China. I've done that trip to China for an ACL game. It is not easy. But they love it, and that is what they dedicate themselves to. The J-League as a culture is only about 32 years old, but the passion is as good as you'll find anywhere in the world.
So speaking of fans then, around the world, I mean, we have, obviously, most of our listeners don't live in Japan. We actually have a good bit that do listen and live in Japan. But, for anyone that's looking to follow J-League and follow what's going on in soccer, professional soccer in the Japan realm, what are the best ways to stay updated and what are the best ways to watch those matches online? if it's possible. I know streaming sometimes is hit or miss depending on if you're out of the country and everything like that. And, VPNs can only go so far.
Right. So if you're in Japan, the best option is DAZN. And it is, it's a subscription service. It does cost, like, they've raised the prices a lot from when they first launched a decade ago. So if you get the annual pass from the J.League, it's like 30,000 yen. But it doesn't just cover the J.League. It covers everything they show on DAZN. If you're a sports guy, you should probably have a DAZN subscription. And that includes a lot of European soccer leagues. It includes Japanese baseball. It includes a lot of weird combat sports and that sort of stuff. Pro darts.
Doesn't NFL have a pass, or you can get like league pass through them too?
DAZN handles NFL Game Pass, but they also do show free games every week. And like they show the Super Bowl for free.
Yeah.
That's absolutely an option. I mean, they have, I'm looking at their menu, chess. God knows what. Chess. These streaming services, fishing, tennis, golf, they have all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's the option. DAZN does show games for free. I think they're trying to show more games outside the paywall to get people interested. So that's how you watch it in Japan. If you are outside of Japan, some countries in Asia do have broadcasters who are showing games. If you don't live in one of those countries, you can check the J.League's English language website for all this info. The J.League does stream 2 games a week on their YouTube, on their international YouTube. And that's with English commentary. The selection of games is kind of random. Like, it is tough if you're a fan of a specific team to try to follow that team. I do know that there are some communities, not to get into specifics, but there's some, private Discord servers where someone's streaming games of certain clubs for fans of that club wherever.
We're getting into the shady side of
right.
sharing.
And like that is what it is. Like, I try to encourage people to watch legally whenever possible, because also the more people watch legally, the more the league sees that it is viable. And we are hopeful that eventually the league will do an OTT solution, kind of what the K-League does, where you can get a subscription service and just get access to anything. And we're hopeful that'll be coming this decade. It's been discussed as sort of something the J.League is paying attention to, but obviously that will happen when it happens. As far as staying up to date on news and everything else, there's the official J.League social channels. They have an English Twitter, an English Instagram, an English TikTok, the website itself. That's a start. There's a bunch of writers and bloggers out there who are constantly writing about the league and everything else. Me among them right now, primarily on Blue Sky, but I'm always up for commissions if you have any commissioning editors who are listening to this. And, there's a few communities. There's a couple Discords. There's a lot of Twitter users. I think a lot of us have shifted to Blue Sky in recent months because of circumstances. And that community is growing really quickly. And, honestly, the teams do a good job on their socials. Some teams are pretty good about getting English Instagram posts up there. You don't really need to know Japanese to watch highlights. You just need to find the team's YouTube channels and that sort of thing. And a lot of them, especially over the course of the pandemic, have become good not just at uploading highlights, but they're really taking control of their own channels and posting more behind the scenes stuff and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of it's not like 20 years ago when you really had to look. When there were maybe 2 English language forums that had anyone who knew what the J.League was. Like, it's so easy to become a fan and to learn more about these clubs.
For the YouTube thing, for when they do they stream it and then put it on demand, or is it only live stream only?
I think it's both, because I've caught some of them, and then before we even went live, I was able to go on there and I saw there were a couple of older. I don't know how long they keep them on there, but they do have some matches that they've just streamed. You can then watch it on demand.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's good to know, because again, I didn't even know I knew they showed clips on their Instagram and stuff, but I didn't even think to look at their YouTube. So that's good to know. I might have to check some stuff out, including some other options that I have that, I don't want to fully disclose what those are, but I do have other options that I could look into.
Like you mentioned VPNs. The problem with VPNs is that DAZN is really good at dealing with VPNs. So if it was the sort of thing where I could say, yes, if you want to do it not quite legally, there are options, but I can't guarantee it will work. And that's why I'm always reluctant to recommend it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have DAZN even for watching the Italian league, and it can see straight through a VPN.
Yeah, I feel like all the major streamers out there nowadays they say, oh, we could detect the VPNs being used. A proxy address here. Nope, sorry. Ain't gonna fly for us.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, Dan, one of the last things as we come up here on the end of our time is we definitely want to give you the opportunity to conclude with pitching anything that you might want to bring to our attention, whether that be books, upcoming projects, website, social media. We know you mentioned Blue Sky. We're also 100% happy to share anything that you have going on when we post this episode. So by all means, take it away. Whatever it's on your mind, your new project.
You can include the competitive dancing too, if you want to.
Hey, you know what? I spent like more than 2 months working on a feature about Japan, the D-League, which is Japan's competitive dance league. I think especially if you look at the global soccer industry and the way that money is impacting the game and the way that the fixture schedule is just getting kind of ridiculous, it's easy to become cynical about the state of the game. But I'll tell you, just like covering a pro dance league is the most fun that I've had as a writer. And it's super cool. And that's all on YouTube. And hey, maybe we can do another episode about that sometime. But primarily, so you can find me on Blue Sky at aishiterutokyo.bsky.social. That's where I do the most of my posting these days. I'm working on a few book projects, none of which have gotten picked up. But if you're a publisher, call me, because I'm looking at sort of shifting to more long form and impactful writing. I think that there are so many amazing analysts out there online these days who are covering sort of the X's and O's and player performances and that sort of thing. And I will leave the stat discussion to my fellow nerds who are of the more statistical variety. If you want to ask me to talk about mascots and stadium food and fan culture, that's the domain that I live on. I'm just really passionate about that side of things. But I think that's one of the great things about the J.League is that whatever you're interested in, there's something there for you.
You should talk to Mondo Mascots about the
I love Mondo Mascots does great work. I love how they pick up J.League stuff once in a while, and I'll see some of the non-J.League mascots there at J.League games once in a while. So catch me on Blue Sky. Hopefully catch me on your favorite bookstore shelf in the next couple of years. Fingers crossed. Do check out that D-League feature. It's on Nikkei Asia, so you have to register and there's a paywall and all that. But I'm super proud of it. And keep watching the J-League and ping us all if you have questions, because I think we, as fans, being fans of a niche league, we are sort of your dealers and your fixers. Like getting you hooked makes us happy because then we have more people to talk to about Kamatamare Sanuki and everything weird that you could imagine in the league. And it's fun. It's so colorful. And hey, if you're in Japan, go to a J-League game. If you're visiting Japan for the first time, if you lived here and you've never made it out, it's so easy to get tickets. It's an amazing atmosphere. It's so cheap. You might spend 3,000 yen for a ticket. Like, that's nothing, guys. You pay more than that for parking to go to an MLS game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can 700 yen beers. You can bring in your own food. Like, I shouldn't have to sell this after this 5-hour podcast episode. But no, it is. As a sports fan, Japanese sports are amazing live. But as a sports fan, the J-League is one of the best sports experiences you will ever have.
All right. Well, I definitely need to when I go back. I'm hopefully we'll be back this summer, end of May, early June. I don't know if Iwaki FC will have stuff, but maybe if not, I could check out something else in Tokyo. I'm usually stationed in Ibaraki, so maybe they even have a team in that area, northern Ibaraki. So I don't know what's up there, but
so Ibaraki does have the two teams. One is Kashima Antlers, and the other is Mito Hollyhock, who
not too far from Mito.
One of the co-founders of the J2 in 1999, and they've been there ever since.
Okay.
Mito's a club. They've stuck it out, full credit, and they have a cool thing where they collab with this anime called Girls in Panzer. The anime about the girls who go to tank school and they learn to drive and they do collaborative uniforms every couple of years. And so that's again what I'm talking about with the anime fandom overlap. So
that's cool.
There's also, Iwaki play at home on there we go, June 21st and June 1st. They have Iwaki have home games. So set your calendar.
There you go.
Right. Okay.
No excuse.
Will do. I'm gonna have to do a deep dive on this. So, and if not, I'll just get in touch with you.
Yeah.
100%. Well, Dan, again, thank you so much for joining us. We got a complete full spectrum look into the J.League, which is exactly what we wanted. And 100%, as the season goes on, develops, if you're open to it, we'd be happy to have you back. We can talk about, mid or postseason review, how it went. We can see if
a little bonus episode action going on.
Bonus episode. Hey, if you think about what we haven't talked about, we haven't talked at all about the women's side, which is also
absolutely
crazy. 2011 world champions, the professional league started about 3 years back, and now they're sending so many players to England and Germany and the US. So
we intended to talk about the women's side of the game, but we figured. Right. Let's do a whole episode just dedicated to that. So absolutely, if you're down for it, we'd love to have you back.
You mentioned, even stuff like you talked about how, the players are known for cleaning up the locker rooms after the World Cup games, and the fans are known for cleaning up after they play. That tradition started in the 80s, back when the fans threw like ticker tape confetti. And Japan played a game against South Korea. I think it was a World Cup qualifier for 86, maybe. They lost. Japan lost. This was at the old National Stadium. And they looked across the way and saw the Korean fans cleaning up after themselves. And a bunch of Japanese fans looked at that and said, they just kicked our asses, and here they are helping to clean up our stadium. What are we doing with ourselves? And that's where the tradition started.
Oh, little rivalry.
Wow. The lore goes so deep,
Yeah.
and it's so there's so much to unpack. I will plug another podcast, which is the J Talk podcast, run by my good friend Ben Maxwell. They've been going for well over a decade now, weekly reviews of every single J1 game. And they have a second show called the J Talk Extra Time, where they talk about the J2 and the J3. And those guys are incredible. And if you want to keep up with the J.League and the national team on a week-to-week basis, that's where you go to. And you will hear, not just myself, I show up as a regular guest, but so many members of our community who participate. So that should be your entry point into the league.
All right, we'll have to link out to that in the show notes as well.
I'll 100% second that as well. Those guys, yourself included, that is largely how I learned about the J.League. So 100% second.
Thank you. And I learned an incredible amount of stuff today on the J.League. So I'm much more invested and interested now than I was before this started. So, but Dan, thank you again. We really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And, hopefully, again, in the future, we will be back in touch and try to schedule something out.
Hey, well, we can do something for your American listeners who are, especially those who are in the Northwest, or our Reds will be coming over for the Club World Cup.
Oh, all right.
They're with Inter River Plate and Monterrey. So if you want to see some of Japan's loudest supporters do their thing, I think about 3,000 are making the trip.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's awesome.
Their supporters are going to take that really seriously. So, hey, check that out. And hey, we can get together at the end of the season to talk about how this will be. This is actually the last calendar year schedule for the J.League. We're switching to fall spring from next season.
Oh, wow.
Which is, you brought that up, and I was like, oh man, I have to put a pin in that and get back to it. But they're doing it to match Europe to match up transfer windows, and also because it's just so dangerous. It's so dangerous to play in July and August. They just want to reduce the number of games. Wow. So next season they're running a special sort of half-season tournament in the first half of 2026, and then the World Cup, and then the next season will run from August through May or June.
Okay. Wow. Didn't know that.
Awesome. Yeah, same.
Now is kind of a good chance, and that crazy half-season tournament will be a wild chance as an entry point to get into the league. But, start watching. The best time to start watching the J.League was, any time before now, and the second best time is now. Whenever you get into it, you'll fall in love with it. I promise you that.
And just like that, the final whistle blows on our 2-part Japanese soccer journey. Thank you so much for tuning into the Krewe of Japan podcast. A huge thank you to Dan Orlowitz for sharing his endless soccer knowledge with us. Seriously, endless. He will be back. At some point in the future, he will be back. So again, thank you, Dan. We appreciate you. And we hope you, listeners out there, enjoyed this dive into Japan's global soccer impact. From World Cup magic to Japanese stars abroad, and even how international players and coaches are shaping the game in Japan. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get a chance to experience a J.League match in person while I was over there earlier this month, but I will be back in July, so maybe then. If I do, you know I'll be posting it up on our socials, so just follow us on there. In the meantime though, make sure you check out the Urawa Reds, who are still in group play for the Club World Cup going on right now, assuming you're listening to this on the day of release. And of course, check out the show notes for all of our links to Dan's works and that J-Talk podcast that he mentioned. But if you enjoyed what you heard on this podcast, make sure you subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review. Every single one of those 5-star ratings and reviews helps others discover Krewe of Japan and join our global crew. Or hey, share this episode with your fellow Japan enthusiast or soccer-loving friend, or anyone who thinks Samurai Blue is the name of an anime show. I mean, it'd probably make a good one. You can also share your fandom and experiences with us on social media. Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Just search for Krewe of Japan podcast to stay in the loop with future episodes, upcoming Japan Society events, and Japan-related content. That's KREWEOFJAPAN, Krewe of Japan. Or maybe you want to reach out to us directly. Send us an email at kreweofjapanpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. But that's it for today. Until next time. Looking to start your own podcast and don't know what platform to use? Tell me about it. When we started the Krewe of Japan podcast, we tried a bunch of the big name recording platforms, but always came back to the one we're still currently using to this day, Zencastr. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. In addition to its high audio and video quality for podcast production, Zencastr provides a full suite of production tools to record, produce, and publish studio quality content from the comfort of your home. Just log in through your browser and start recording. It's that simple. For us, we simply send out links to our guests and they join the lobby. But before you know it, it's all done and you have your studio quality audio and up to 4K video right there ready for you, right when you finish. The best part is having their multi-layered backups to ensure that your recordings are in the highest quality, regardless of anyone's internet connection stability. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcasts in one place and distribute to all the major destinations. It's really that easy. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code Krewe of Japan, KREWEOFJAPAN, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's your time to share your story.